Broadcasting live from the Zimmer Communications World Headquarters. This is Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Get ready, pal.
Here's your host, Randy Tobler.
Stormy weather.
You sound different this morning, Randy.
It was Stormy Daniels, and holy cow.
It was scandalous. I found out a lot more than I wanted to know, or I think that I needed to know.
Yeah, I think that's the active word, needed.
I was just jaw-droppingly amazed at the reports coming out of the courtroom yesterday. We'll be talking about that in the court, the Trump trial with Stormy Daniels with bombshell testimony yesterday, rooting through Donald's stop kit. He's an Old Spice man, apparently, according to Stormy. I don't know. And from a serious standpoint, how in the world she got away with getting away with what she got away with, I don't know. I mean, and ultimately the judge had to basically raise objections in behalf of the defense.
The judge did raise some
Yes.
objections, and actually then when they went on break, Trump's team said, this is a mistrial. Like, this is just completely, and I think they tried to make that argument at the beginning of like, look, this is a books and records case, not, a case about this. And they just, the things that came out of her mouth, yikes.
And apparently
Did she talk about any of that?
so to speak.
John and I were in the same boat.
Wow. Well, on a more positive note, Governor Parsons signs the school choice bill. That's good news, I think, it expands choice, assuming that the multiple school districts around the area that are going to push back, and are they going to file a suit? No, they ask him not to do it. Now, can they file suit? I don't know.
Oh, they can. Oh,
Will
certainly.
they?
Yeah, they could file suit over the argument that they brought up in their letter saying that it's a special law.
Yeah.
Now, will they? I don't know. Typically, and I haven't looked at the effective date of this legislation. It's usually in August, so typically you wouldn't see that lawsuit for a little bit. But, what we know is the education establishment is well funded. They had a bad year, and when they feel backed into the corner, anybody with $100 can file a lawsuit. So I wouldn't be surprised.
You get a lawsuit, and you get a lawsuit, and you get a lawsuit.
It was really something. That just yesterday we talked about that letter. Obviously, they had no influence on Governor Parson at all. He signed it.
Not surprised.
Not surprised. No, that's no big deal.
It's a huge priority for Republicans, and we've sat here on the show for 3 years saying, when are we going to get education reform? And we got told, I think, 2 or 3 Lincoln days ago that it was Caleb Rowden's #1 priority. So people were super frustrated after the last session. So everyone was kind of throwing a party last night as far as, my Twitter feed looked. People are just ecstatic because we kept getting these small incremental changes. And we could go full vouchers,
No, it's
Randy,
good.
but it's a big step in the right direction.
It did expand those educational, what's it called, the EAPs, whatever,
ESAs.
EAPs, ESAs, EIEIO.
And yesterday was even National Teachers Day, so I thought it was cool that the
Big
governor
raise.
signed it on that day of all days.
Teachers got a big raise, right? So there was a lot in there for public schools as well.
Depending, but
Yeah.
there's some extra funding in there.
And,
the funding, it's that bill coupled with what we expect to
that's
be
right.
in the budget.
They have to do the budget to fulfill what's in the bill
Yes, they have to appropriate some of the money for the new teacher grant
after
fund.
they have 5 subcommittee meetings and 3 readings. And
They don't have time for 5
a
subcommittee
conference
meetings.
committee and a whatever.
Time's wasting on that.
And
They didn't get to the budget yesterday.
3 dinners at the Grand Cafe, 2 appearances on the Scott Fawn, Missouri. I don't
The
know.
Senate
I don't understand it all.
went through 3rd readings of House bills, so they passed a whole bunch of different stuff, but they never really did get to the budget. So is today Wednesday?
Yeah,
So we got
Wednesday.
3 working days, and usually they don't like to work on Friday. Somehow I think they might be in this Friday.
Yeah, for a while.
Well, 6 o'clock's the deadline, right, John?
The rules say they have to have the budget done by this Friday.
Or special session looms large for next month.
They better just go ahead and stock up on some energy drinks and snacks, is all I can say.
Well, if they don't do it by Friday, who says they can't just do it by Monday and say we were a
The
little late.
Constitution, I think.
You mean they have to
Constitution,
go
yeah.
to a special session?
Yeah, I mean, there's
It's off the table?
Yeah, it's a constitutional
This hasn't
deadline.
happened since the late 90s.
And John, there's like some old story, and somebody might know it better than me, in that like they actually like turned one of the clocks, the manual clocks, off, or like wound it back to say that it was like 6 o'clock. Is that true?
Yeah, that was one of the old saws.
And I don't know if that
the
was
exact story.
the budget or the end of session, but I mean, this is what we pay you to do, right? You're down there on the taxpayer dime, and you don't have a job to do educational reform. You don't have a job to do IP reform. You don't have a job to make gold bars the new Tinder. What you do have a job to do is pass the budget.
I know you meant Tinder, like TENDER, but I was thinking of the other one. Sorry.
If you're using gold bars on Tinder, I think that's called OnlyFans. Hannah.
Yeah.
You know, whatever gets the swipe right.
And back to Trump world, because it does matter in this election cycle. Judge Eileen Cannon down in Florida has indefinitely suspended. What is it called? What's the final word? She suspended the trial. What's the right word?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, postponed, continued.
Indefinitely.
That's not uncommon. I mean, it's kind of crazy here. I mean, no one was really expecting it here, I don't think. But what came out this weekend was there's an evidentiary issue. And so she said there's, I guess, a lot of pretrial motions. And I think what they were supposed to start in 2 weeks. And she's like, we got to get through all these other issues first. Right. And they actually released the letter, I think, that Trump's attorneys wrote and said, hey, we've been looking at these documents. And it's a weird attorney term. It's called spoliation. It's like you spoil the evidence in that, like, and sometimes you destroy documents or whatever, but apparently they had previously presented to the court that the documents were exactly as they were picked up from Mar-a-Lago. In going through it, Trump's attorneys realized, I don't think they said any were missing, but they said they were out of order and they couldn't figure out, which boxes, which documents belong to. And for whatever reason, that's important. They filed these motions and the judge says, we got to get through all this other stuff before we even can have a trial.
Well,
I guess the silver lining, right? So the hush money trial may be the only one Trump will face before November.
And I think it's in trouble after yesterday. I mean, that is, maybe the judge is
kind of off the rails.
You're very kind the way you say the documents weren't in the right order. I mean, what I've read is they've been manipulated. Things are changed. I mean, the pictures, the way they showed them didn't match. I guess that's what you mean. There's something funny going on. It's almost like Jack Smith. The allegations are, maybe we need to put on our tinfoil hats, but that somehow the FBI and or Jack Smith's people are not playing right with the evidence, right? I mean, is this like Cato Kalin, or no? Who was the guy? Who was the investigator in the? No, he
wasn't Cato Kalin. No, was the guy that lived in the bathhouse.
No. Who was the investigator that did something with the data back in the O.J. Simpson? Remember?
Oh gosh, yes.
They didn't handle the.
Yeah.
Remember?
I can't remember the guy's name.
Yeah.
I mean, prosecutors and evidence is like one of their highest duties, right? And a lot of people are saying that's spoliation of evidence would be potentially an ethical violation and have some serious ramifications. And if you don't have, I mean, people oftentimes hear of things like chain of custody with evidence in like criminal cases and stuff, and it can completely ruin an entire case. And so again, I'm not. The letter that was released yesterday was, I think, a summary of some other documents. So I don't know what the exact allegations are as far as what was out of order. I think it would be more concerning if something was actually missing, if there was some allegation that they destroyed or hid something. Again, right now it seems to be an ordering issue, but even that is pretty serious because once you start saying, well, these are mixed up. Okay, so like, did you put them in the back of Joe's convertible to bring them down here, and like some of them blew out?
And what happened?
Yeah, I mean, once they're mixed up, you're kind of like, how mixed up are they, and are there any missing? I mean, would you know if some were missing? It's just.
The Trump team, they're already talking about questions to chain of custody on the documents.
Yeah,
and they want a mistrial too. They've called for that.
The one thing's for sure. I'm going to use this word 3 times today, and it will be now cemented forever in my vocabulary. Spoliation. That's what happens when the tailgate food stays too long in the refrigerator. It can spoliate.
It's rare, and I think in more. I don't want to date myself, but in more than 10 years of practicing law, I think I've only used that word once. and accuse someone or say
so it's a significant allegation.
Yes, it
and
is.
rare. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah, it's significant.
Yeah, I've never 30 years of court coverage. I've never heard.
Really?
I've personally not seen
Wow.
it. Now, a couple of cases outside of other states, maybe not around here.
In a case you've covered, you've not seen.
I don't even think in the Ryan Ferguson case. Now, Jen Bukowski can correct me. I don't believe that term was used. There were other issues that defense attorneys raised, but
Spoliation.
yeah,
The destruction,
It's rare. It's rare.
according to Thomson Reuters practical law, the destruction or alteration of evidence resulting from a party's failure to preserve evidence relevant to a litigation or investigation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
Again, I just not something you normally see much.
No.
Wow. Well, wonder if Locke Thompson would like to comment on this sometime. If I see him, I'm going to ask him
He'd
if
probably
he's ever spoliated.
I'm sure he'd come on. He's always a good
I'm sure
guest.
he would never spoliate. Don't you dare spoliate.
He's got a lot of different cases he's working on for sure.
I hope he does. I hope nothing goes awry in his investigation of those Palestinian protesters.
Those
Remember,
are still under
that's
review.
still ongoing, right?
Those
well,
are
the
still
last
under,
time we talked with
yeah,
him.
those are still under review, and he's still investigating that. And he made that clear to Jen Bukowski. And he's got several other cases as
Brian,
well.
before we head to break, and we get to the daily DC rundown, I came into the studio today and I said, "Where's all this bad weather? I thought we were going to have bad weather Wednesday," and you said, "Wait, it's coming."
Yeah.
But it looks beautiful out here.
Well, it looks beautiful now, and I hope it stays that way. Again, the National Weather Service, Randy, is saying that the entire 93.9 The Eagle and KWS listening areas, probably a little bit more on the KWS side, but 93.9 The Eagle for sure, and KWS, the entire listening areas are capable and will be capable of tornadoes and large hail. I'm waiting on an updated map from the National Weather Service. Once I get that, I'll get it up on both websites. I got a story basically ready to go. The time frame we're looking at is early to mid-afternoon. That's about the best I can tell you. Now, for our music stations that really wouldn't directly affect us, there is a potential of some severe weather this morning as well. But we're potentially looking at tornadoes. We're looking at large hail and damaging winds. I hope that doesn't happen. But again, the National Weather Service is telling people to keep the radio tuned here to
On CNN, fake news CNN, Michael Moore said the proof of falsifying records has not been accomplished. On Good Morning America, they said, we heard that expense payments to lawyers are legal expenses. You pay a lawyer expense payments.
Well, that's Donald Trump, and here's the daily DC rundown with Stephanie Bell.
And a little behind the scenes here, beyond all of our computer screens, we do have a TV screen. And yesterday, Randy and I are watching the TV screen, and we see Trump, and he's got this half-folded piece of paper, and it looks like he's reading on his trial little stump speech that he gives every day. And you never see him read from a script, ever. And even if he has a script, he goes off script. But he was very clearly reading, and I turned to you. We couldn't tell exactly what was happening. I said, Randy, what's he reading? What's he doing? And I figured maybe, he's under this gag order. He's had $10,000 worth of fines so far. I figured maybe his lawyer had given him a statement and said, we really don't want you to go to jail. Read these words so we don't violate the gag order. But instead, he was reading statements from news sites that said, and basically, you know how Brian and John, you guys always talk to us about attribution. You can't really be penalized if you say, well, so-and-so said this. And so that's what Trump's doing right here. He's saying CNN said this, so-and-so said this. And he's saying, so I think now when the judge says, well, you said this about the trial or the jury, he said, I didn't say that. I was just repeating what someone else said, which is actually pretty smart, I think.
It makes you wonder if a former Missouri Solicitor General had a hand in putting that together.
It's interesting for sure.
Didn't he? I got to thinking about that. Didn't he get in trouble for retweeting something else?
I think
or at least wasn't that one of their charges?
One of their charges.
And then he got in trouble. Wasn't the last one that he got in trouble for? Because he just made a blanket statement about the jurors.
We have some state senators who could maybe take some notes.
But I mean, think about that. He didn't. How broad of an interpretation does that judge make of his order? Because the last one that he said that he got in trouble for was these jurors are all Democrats, and I can't get a fair trial. He didn't make a specific. Juror number 3 looks at the New York Times. I mean,
his lawyers are arguing that they've been arguing that it's overbroad and it hasn't really been working. The judge has a lot of power here and has Trump right now on a pretty tight leash. So
one mission.
We'll see what happens.
I thought it was interesting that one of the angles they were looking at said, well, if the judge orders Trump to jail, does that mean his whole Secret Service team has to go with him?
I think so. And I don't know how logistically that would work.
You'd have to take a whole block on the jail,
Right.
Oh, my gosh.
All right. Well, we're not, right now, that he hasn't been accused, at least based on yesterday's comments, of reading of any more violations of the gag order. We'll see if he comes out reading today. I suspect.
Gag by proxy.
We will see that going forward. We did have some elections in Indiana yesterday, Randy, and there were a couple of key takeaways. Nikki Haley, walked away with a little bit bigger chunk than people
20
thought.
some odd percent. Trump only got 70 some odd percent.
And I think the liberals are probably going to say that's an anti-Trump vote.
Yeah.
And then also there was some significant Republican primaries. Representative Spartz, she was being challenged from the right. She ended up walking away with that nomination. So they'll continue. I think people forget that states have lots of control over their primaries. Missouri has a notably late primary, but we'll continue to try to update you on these states' primaries because I think it might offer some insight as to how our very late primary ends up going.
We'll have, about 2.5 months, right?
Less than 100 days.
Yeah, Trump got 78%, Nikki Haley 22%, a little shy of 22%. Still a significant, anti-Trump out there, but I think it's changing. Bill Barr has his former, who's had some harsh words for him. He endorsed him. Mitch McConnell's endorsed him. So people are The team here, we were talking about spoliation of evidence in the Mar-a-Lago documents trial, and I couldn't remember the name of the guy that messed up the evidence in the OJ trial. And John Marsh on our shared text line says Mark Furman.
Yeah,
you
Detective Mark Furman.
Detective Mark Furman.
That's why his mustache is so big. It's full of secrets and knowledge.
It's a lot of
And boogers.
A lot of spoliation going on there. And he went. I haven't seen him in a while, but wasn't he then for quite a while a Fox analyst? Right. I'm thinking some of the other cases that were to follow. So,
I think after a fact he was.
Yeah. Hey, we were just having an off-the-air interesting discussion, and this is one of those that it can go both ways as far as how you think about these matters. Stephanie found this story about Josh Hawley and his Twitter post, "A victory for airline passengers," Senator Hawley says. "You shouldn't have to beg for a refund when the airline cartels cancel your flight." So apparently there's something, the updated language in the Warren-Hawley amendment that makes the refund language in line with the Biden administration's recently announced policy.
So Hawley's supporting the Biden administration policy and going to enshrine that into our law.
Yeah.
Whoa.
So I guess what's going to happen?
Very progressive of him.
If you get your flight canceled, they will have to do something, refund.
And I think it's interesting in that we have these like, is it conservative or is it populist? And so I think Josh Hawley lately has been like on the line with the union folks and like, I'm a man of the people, and like the little guy who gets his airline ticket canceled and then is going to get a refund. And I'm like, no, but for the little guy, if we were really protecting him, we'd let like the free market do its thing. Because and Hannah was initially, she sent that story to me when Biden announced it.
I thought that you would be excited, and I quickly learned otherwise.
I was not excited because if the airlines are forced to pay everyone back every time there's a cancellation, who do we think's going to eat that cost? They're just going to...
Guess what your next ticket will cost, right?
Yeah, they're just going to spread that cost on all of us. And if you've tried to buy an airline ticket lately, they're astronomical. And I think because of the Biden's policies were recently announced, and now Hawley's like, let's keep on going down path Biden. And I thought, what happened to like freedom and free markets? Well, I was when I saw the tweet, I was like, what?
Yeah, it does seem very populist in the government getting into... Here's the issue, though. Is it really a free market? It's a highly regulated market. And is there as much competition that allows as much, distinctive advantage for one airline over another? I guess they can. Well, look at Southwest. Southwest has a great policy. We bought some tickets because we thought we were going to go out to North Carolina and visit my son and daughter-in-law, and things got moved back. So I'd already bought 3 or 4 tickets for kids here and my wife and I back in March. Was it March? I don't know. And they refunded and said, "Oh, you got a credit. No big deal." And they let me reschedule. It was great.
And so then, as the
That was
consumer,
nice.
You get to pick Southwest over someone else who doesn't have that policy.
So liberal
But now,
policy.
now Josh Hawley says we're going to have the government tell all the airlines what to do. And I think in this situation, I do think in certain circumstances when the government grants someone like a monopoly, for example, investor-owned utilities, a lot of times in the energy space, then you get this, highly regulated industry.
Good
and
point.
there are some instances where it makes sense. But here, the government lately has been busting up the airlines. Remember, they've tried to do some deals and tried to merge, and the government said, no, you can't do that. We need more competition. And I think right now we do have some competition in airlines, such that this is just, I think this is being praised as it's a win for the little guy.
Yeah,
and no, it's going to price the
You're
little
gonna
guy
pay for it,
out
right?
from flying at all.
Now your bags are going to cost you $75 a bag, if you check it. It's getting ridiculous. Yeah, boy, if there was good, Senator Hawley, if you want to work on something, could you mandate that you don't have to sit in a seat with your knees up in your tonsils, for crying out loud?
I don't have that problem.
We forget when we talk about this stuff with this FAA reimbursement deal. What was it? It was just a few years ago during the pandemic when the government came up with billions of dollars to bail out the airline industry because they were sitting parked because nobody was flying anywhere.
Yeah. I don't know, but speaking of, what is it? This is why I don't buy lottery tickets or anything. I just have the worst luck when it comes to the luck of the draw.
Oh, boy.
I always buy the cheapest economy cargo. If I could go in the cargo bin, I would. I don't want to spend a lot of money.
Pack me up in the suitcase.
I'd stow away. Give me in the, where the...
put you in the car carrier next to the Great Dane.
I mean,
huh?
I think you just have to go to the border first and come up, and then you get
there
the free
you go.
flights,
Yeah.
right?
Well, I could move to Afghanistan first, and then as they're evacuating, I could hang on to the landing gear or something. Yeah. So I always take the random seat. I don't want to pick a seat and pay another $50.
And you're really friendly, so you'd be that guy like in the middle seat chatting everybody up, Randy.
The guy that Stephanie would hate to be seated next
That's
to.
what some of the most compelling.
Steffi does have a pit bull.
Yeah.
Some of the most compelling conversations I've ever had, and introductions to interesting books and things and philosophies, are in the old days, back in the 90s, or the late 80s, the 90s, before everyone had a phone, they're buried in their phone. You can have a conversation with someone. I met some of the most interesting people. We had nice conversations, talked about things.
Do you tell people?
Now everyone just they're buried in their phone. You know. But why is it I always get the center seat? I hate the center
Because
seat.
people-
The
You're
worst seat on the airplane.
You're the best guy for the middle seat, though.
Yeah,
Well, and
the
people
other
pay
two
not to
seats
have
are
that.
the two fat guys, right?
Well, and I always feel bad because I'm very conscientious. I don't want my presence to bear on other people. So I'm sitting there with my elbows. I'm like doing liver surgery on the one hand and spleen surgery on the other hand with my elbows because I don't want to take the guys or the gals, especially if it's a gal. I don't want to take her armrest. So I'm sitting there like I'm huddled in the corner, give me a dunce cap, I hate it. And of course, I'm not 35 anymore. So then when I have to get up and use the bathroom 2 times on a flight to DC, then I'm in, it's like everyone's got to unbuckle. I hate that.
It's terrible.
I think
don't know why anyone
I
would
think they ought to give guys with a prostate the aisle seat. I'm sorry. You ought to be able to claim prostate privilege. What do you think, John?
That's why
Prostate privilege.
Well,
Yeah.
my answer to that is depends.
And my wife, of course, she gets that nice seat where she can sleep against the
I love that,
the inner
yeah.
seat. Yeah, the window seat. It's great. I'm an aisle seat guy. Give me the aisle seat. Love the aisle seat.
It depends on how big the plane is, but yeah.
Yeah. But is it American that has there's no room? I think one of the airlines, there's a little room between rows, and Southwest has nice
fly
room.
in the exit row. Or you want
Well, I
on
can't
the
get that.
Columbia
I have to
flight,
pay to do that.
You want like row 8. You want the row immediately behind first class, and it's a little bit bigger.
But I can't do that with the economy coach sit back in the galley where they're pouring the coffee.
You got to get one of those credit cards and get all the status and the miles and stuff.
I keep wanting to do that when the nice lady or man comes down the aisle and flashes the card and you get 50,000 points.
By the way, that's a really
My
good
wife
point.
won't let me do that.
Well,
She says it's another card on our credit score.
Has anyone ever signed up for a credit card sitting on the airplane? We get that
Oh, I
spiel
was close.
You would have been the first, I think, because they give you that commercial every time, and I've never seen someone do it. And I'm like, they'll wake you up out of a dead sleep to tell you about, they're like the car warranty people. And you're like, just leave me alone. I'm already here. If I wanted your credit
Another
card.
thing that troubles me, I always struggle with this, a lot of tension in my mind when I'm sitting there.
No,
a lot of tension
not
in my
you,
mind.
Randall.
Because
You should road trip more, I guess.
a
Randy.
lot of tension in my mind. When
in his big A truck that might not be cost
I don't know.
effective.
I hate it. Don't you hate it when you don't like it when you're giving a talk and someone's in their phone, right? You like to be engaged.
Always back to the phone.
So, no. When you're giving a talk, you don't like to see people looking at their watch. Of course, that tells you something about your talk. But looking in their watch, looking in their phone, reading the pamphlet. And so when the nice used to be called stewards and stewardesses, now they're what? Flight attendants. Flight attendants. You can't use that. You can't use waitress. You can't use steward. Flight attendants. When the flight attendants are doing their buckle and the masks drop out of the ceiling and all that, I actually do intently look at them because they're doing a performance and it's part of their gig. And ignoring them troubles me. Everyone's buried in their phone, making calls, doing everything. Don't we owe it just out of courtesy? Shouldn't we view the production? No.
American was playing that really nice fun video, and that one was cool. I liked the little video, but no, am I paying attention? No. If that plane goes down, am I doing anything but just screaming my head off? Am I looking for? No, I'm not. And if
We know how
Your
Steph
seat
is
can be
in an
used as a
emergency.
flotation device.
no way, I will be completely unhelpful. It is, they should.
The videos can be interesting though. They're creative sometimes. They're good. I like that.
Give me the credit card offer in a creative way, and maybe I'll be less
Yeah.
cranky about it.
Yeah, no, I like the videos. They're good. And some of the foreign video, like, is it, like the Middle East Airlines and is it Korean Airlines? And so, they're really creative. I mean, they really are very well produced. They're really neat. They're not so infomercially. They got a little panache to them, a little pizzazz. I like that.
Which, speaking of, are you ready for all of the political ads that we're going to be getting? I can't wait. I'm trying to decide.
Some have already started on this very radio station.
Yes, and I think last time we got some pretty creative ones, especially when we were looking at the Senate race. People had various props. There was some baseball, there were some guns, flamethrowers, and we've got some pretty interesting candidates. Hannah, you sent me a reel yesterday. I don't think we can even say on air what this gal said on her Instagram.
Oh, yeah. She was kind of playing off of the thirst trap, working out ads that folks have done before.
Yeah. So she's running for Secretary of State.
Yeah.
And it wasn't quite as salacious as the Stormy Daniels testimony yesterday, but it had some innuendo to it.
Yeah.
Well, and her whole platform is just about her being hot, so.
Who's
Good
that?
looking. Valentina.
Who's it?
She's running for
Who is it?
Secretary
Who is
of
it?
State.
Yeah.
Oh, Valentina. Yeah, we've talked
Yeah.
about her.
Randy, wait at least until we're in a commercial break to go look up this ad that we're talking about.
No.
Come on.
I was looking up the law. I was trying to count the number because I met David Wassinger last night, who's a lieutenant governor, at the Vitae Foundation dinner. It was
How was
fantastic. We had a fabulous dinner last night. I posted on my Facebook. I guess we should share it. How do you share with the Wake Up Mid Missouri thing? Can you help me with that? I don't know. Maybe you can grab that and share it. But there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 candidates in the GOP side for lieutenant governor. Met David Wassinger. Jesus Osete was there last night. Saw John Martin. Saw a lot of great people. I saw Vivek Malik was there. Saw Tony Lupo at the dinner last night. Great speaker. Alicia Krause was there. Alicia Krause speaks on behalf of she speaks across the nation for life. She speaks with a lot of college groups. Has 4 kids. Has a 8-month-old, 6-month-old, and brings her children with her. That's part of her deal. If I'm coming, my kids are coming with me, and one of the Vitae staff was doing that. Brandy Meeks did a great talk. There were so many they presented great research. But Alicia Krause she produced the Sean Hannity show at 18 years old.
Wow.
18 years old is when she started. Just like producer Hannah, young producer Hannah. How old were you when you started producing this show?
19.
Look at that.
Crazy.
Alicia Krause got nothing on you.
Aw.
But in the end, I mean, you're saying how many people are in this race? 8. In the end, you've got 3 people who would have enough money to actually mount a campaign.
Yeah. I was talking with Jesus. I said, man, look at all the earned media you get just because of your name. Look at all the churches that have. Remember, we saw that sign.
He was just on Scott Fawn's little midweek update.
Yeah, he said,
too.
I got to check that out. Yeah. Scott and his stein of knowledge. What a Oh, the Boy Scouts now is, what is it called? Scouting America?
Something like that.
That's next. Yep.
And, I find myself getting angry sometimes when you look at the landscape of the American culture and you think, my gosh, it's just gone off the rails. And so, and maybe that approach to trying to, when you talk with people about how crazy it is to do away with metrics, like what if they didn't have an LSAT? What if they didn't have an MCAT? And everyone was either a lawyer or a doctor or an engineer or a teacher just because of your lived experience.
Or the guy who screws the door on the plane.
Right, yeah.
Or whatever.
And you think about how absurd the culture is. And then I figure, maybe the way to message it is like, the Babylon Bee. I think they do a fabulous job of just sort of making fun of it all. Now, if you're offended by Christian references, I'm a man of faith. But once in a while, having a fun Christian reference that pokes fun at wokeness, I think, is fun.
We play a lot of John Christ, and he has a lot of like kind of Christian themed comedy, and I think his is some of the best.
Yeah. And what I love about, if you haven't seen the series The Chosen, the guy there that plays Jesus, it's a very relatable sort of, there's a little humor, he sort of just smiles at the disciples when they're being fools once in a while, and sort of, he has fun with them. He toys around, he laughs. Well, here's a little bit of some Babylon Bee and, maybe a little Sermon on the Mount woke style kind of stuff.
If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn it off with the other also. Unless they're a Republican. Then you can feel free to punch them in the face. Let the children come unto me, and do not hinder them, unless they might be born into poverty, or they might be an inconvenience to your party lifestyle. In that case, feel free to murder them in the womb.
So it's pretty pithy humor, and it delivered with a woke Jesus. And maybe that's the way to get people to think about the woke culture, how absurd it is. I mean, to think last night in a room of probably 200 and some odd people, listening to the great research done that talks about how negatively that decision to terminate a pregnancy can be, and how serious, and it's such gravity that people think about that. But then they do a lot of research that talks about, even rescuing after you've taken an abortion pill. You can rescue probably 2/3 if you get on it right away and they do a lot of that. And to think we're in a time when people are just celebrating that. I don't know. Maybe the way to get to the young people and have them think seriously about this issue and not preach at them, but to have fun with it and just have maybe you think that's effective? No?
Is through TikTok, Randy. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Okay, you got it.
Father said, choose the bread of life or you'll be toast.
Oh, yeah. Hey, when we come back... to hear that.
Might not be a good idea.
And the way that we sometimes go immediately from our conversation to air just amazes me.
It's a good topic. When you go to the doctor,
No, Randy.
Yeah, let's not go there, please.
should you talk to the doctor before you have to disrobe for your exam? Or should you just disrobe for the exam and wait for the doctor to come in? I think you should. I like to meet. We talk with our patients, but then maybe I'll do a little, especially if it's a female exam, I'll listen to the heart, lungs, then say, hey, I'm going to step out and then, take off your bottoms and we'll do your exam. I don't like to just walk in and patient's undressed. And that's not right. I like to get to know someone before you examine them.
I'm wondering if you're talking about the exam room or if you're talking about the Stormy Daniels testimony.
No.
Isn't that what she said? She came out of the bathroom and he was already in a state of undress and doing a weird pose on the bed.
Well, was that? I thought he had his silk jammies on.
I thought he was in whitey tighties. I don't know. Maybe I just
At one
Boxers.
Point, well, yeah, boxers and a T-shirt. But I also thought at one point he had his silk jammies when she came up to his room, but then she asked him to dress into something less comfortable. I don't know.
Oh.
And then she routed. Why was she going through his DOP kit looking for Old Spice and stuff? I don't get
Because that's
that.
how you that's how you tell if people are decent or not.
What?
I think.
Huh?
Yeah. I
Unpack that for me.
Don't look at me. I don't know what you're talking about.
They
His
say
shaving kit.
The shaving kit.
there's all
Okay.
sorts of TikToks about that, Hannah. If you were to go into a young man's bathroom in college and they have one 3-way body wash that they use the same hair, same shampoo, same body wash, and they have no cologne, they have nothing else, nothing for female, that they're just unprepared to be cleanly and take care of themselves or something.
You mean the 3-way wash isn't good?
No.
But then it's also a bit of a red flag if they have too many.
If they have too much
Too
stuff,
many manscaping products.
well, then or women's stuff, then then you're oh, okay.
Does this person have a girlfriend?
Yeah, and so I think do they have dental floss or or mouthwash or are they well groomed? Do they have I think you could tell a lot by what people have in their. Why not?
Wow. I never thought of it that way.
So if you ever invite Stephanie Bell over, just know she's gonna nose through the medicine cabinet.
Totally. Maybe, and you might stumble upon some medications. There's a lot that could be learned.
Antifungal creams and all sorts of things like that.
Oh my gosh, it's deteriorating here.
Well, that's what happened in the courtroom yesterday. Was we heard a lot of stuff that not only did we not really want to know, but what Trump's lawyer said was this is stuff the jury didn't need to know. It's it's totally just salacious. It's totally prejudiced them against Trump. This is just ridiculous. Now, at the same time, they brought out that I think they just flat out asked her do you hate Trump? And she's like, yes. No. And so have you paid your legal fees? There was this judgment against her. No, I don't ever want to pay him. I hate the guy. And so she also kind of discredited herself, but we kind of already knew.
What do you think you're going to get? Yeah, when you put a porn star on the witness stand, she's going to be pretty frank about those kind of encounters, you would imagine.
I think she calls herself a producer or an actress, John. But yes.
In the adult entertainment industry.
She's in the adult entertainment industry.
She said, that's what we do.
Here it is.
That's how we do. Here we go.
Am I correct? You hate President Trump, said Trump's lawyer. Correct, says Stormy. Lawyer. And you want him to go to jail if he's convicted. Where you were looking to extort money from President Trump? False. That's what you did. False. You've been making money by claiming you had sex with Mr. Trump for more than. I think Alvin Bragg and his Democrat sympathizers across the spectrum are just in a wink-wink mode. They don't really care whether there's a conviction or not. This is meant to humiliate, embarrass, take him off the trail, and really hurt him financially as well.
But do you think it actually, I do think that taking him off the trail is hurting him. The financial is hurting him. But as far as changing people's minds, I don't think this changes anybody's mind. I think people who are already in the bag for Trump, he's not reading off of a piece of paper.
What I can't
He looks so tired. And I don't blame him.
He's old. I look tired, and I'm half his age.
Yeah, I look tired.
I still don't understand it. Apparently, they showed this picture from 2006 at a golf tournament.
Yeah.
With him next to Stormy Daniels. And that's when they met, and he asked her to dinner and whatever. Wasn't that when his wife was pregnant? Was Melania pregnant then?
I don't know.
What is with these guys?
I don't know the timeline.
What are you doing? I mean, it's irrespective of whether Melania is a attractive, smart woman. You got the world by the string, as the Frank Sinatra song goes.
And then you go and throw a chair over the balcony.
And then you're what is with this?
Power and ego and money corrupt.
I don't understand. Yeah, you're right. And I guess they think they're immune from ever getting caught, however you define getting caught, right? There's many ways to get caught. And whether it's legally, whether it's relationally, I just don't get it. But I guess there's nothing new under the sun.
But if you're Trump, what you were saying here is the whole reason you paid off Stormy Daniels was to protect your family and to keep it, not to change the outcome of the election, but was to keep it from your wife and to keep it from your family.
Yeah.
And so I don't think this is changing anyone's mind. It is crazy. I do think, I think people were really excited, though, about the pushback of the documents trial, though, yesterday. And I think that was kind of a shocker for a lot of people.
To put it on suspension indefinitely. She's not going to reschedule it until whatever. They have to fix these issues with, here it is. You have to use a word 3 or 4 times before it becomes cemented. Spoliation. Stephanie taught us a new word today, ladies and gentlemen. If you're just joining, not exfoliation. That's what we do with our skin when we do a peel. Right?
I wonder if Trump had any exfoliators in his kit.
I thought Trump was doing a peel.
No. He'll be doing an appeal when he loses one or more cases. Yeah.
All right, spoliation is when
it
can be the destruction or like the alteration of evidence. And so Trump's lawyers in the documents case wrote a letter to the court, and I guess the government had previously represented that the documents in the boxes from Mar-a-Lago were exactly as they, picked them up. And upon review, Trump's lawyers have said, actually, it appears that these things are out of order. We're having difficulty figuring out which documents were in which box, and that is called spoliation. And so it's pretty rare, and it's a serious claim. And so the judges basically said, we got to get through all these other issues before we can even think about having a trial, especially if there are these fundamental evidentiary issues.
Yeah.
And so I think they will be working through that, how long that process takes and whether that plays out before the election, possibly. But it's pretty clear we won't have a trial in that case before the election.
Well, I mean, what if she did schedule it in July? We still have a trial, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, possible. You think she's being accused because she's a Trump appointee of this is a partisan ruling, right? Of being biased and I don't know. From what if this is a serious issue that's going to take a little while to resolve, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon. And I think when these things first kind of got filed and got scheduled, it was bizarre that they were scheduling them so fast anyway. And so I think, if you're a judge, I don't think the judiciary in general likes to try to interfere with an election. That's not their goal, right? And so I think a lot of judges probably do have hesitation of putting someone who's a political candidate on trial right in the midst of an election and being even accused or even the appearance of, interfering. And so you see that with candidates, you see it with ballot measures. We were just talking about the case here in Missouri where the court basically overturned that KC police vote. Mm-hmm. It's the first time they've ever done it on a fiscal note summary. It's not something they want to do. They want to leave it up to the people if they can, and so I think judges, I would have it. So I don't think the scheduling is necessarily political. I think it has more to do with, rule of law, and the appearance of involving yourself in the election.
Yeah.
What about the whole angle of the Supreme Court considering the Trump claim of presidential immunity? Weren't they talking about possibly by July? I wonder how that would factor into all this.
Certainly.
Now that case regarding the D.C. Jack Smith case about election interference and inciting violence and all that, right?
Right.
Because those arguments were a couple of weeks ago.
Well, the timing of that case has been really interesting because it went up to the D.C. Court of Appeals, then it went to Supreme Court. And so.
And what about the Fani Willis case? Where's that?
I heard some stuff about her this week. I think she's said she was going to refuse if she was subpoenaed.
Maybe she and Kim Gardner hanging out. You can't find Kim Gardner. She's gone AWOL over in St. Louis. They're trying to Fitzpatrick. He's
trying to find her. You almost had it.
Fitzpatrick. I spoliated that one, didn't I? Sorry, Scott. Scott Fitzpatrick, the auditor, can't find her. She's AWOL to audit her. Is it a personal audit or an audit related to her office?
Her office.
Okay. And then.
And this audit started in 2021. The former auditor is the one who started the audit. That's how long it's been going on.
man, I don't know. But, you think about it. If the common person, if you and I were if Scott Fitzpatrick said to me, we need to get, that would be the singular focus of my life. If an official government agent says something, forget about it, cancel all the patients. I don't care if it's my wife's birthday. Sorry, honey. The government, the strong arm of the boot of the government is on my neck.
Well, I think
that's the way most ordinary people interpret legal stuff from the government. But if you're in the government, you're special, you're part of the swamp, you this, you got that, you got connections. Not so much.
Yeah.
That's why people become populist Trump supporters.
Yeah, I think the assumption that Kim Gardner is a rational, reasonable actor was thrown out the window a long time ago. So I'm not surprised.
Yeah, but I don't think it
on the run.
I think most of us out here are thinking, people can, if you got enough money and enough connections, you can work your way around the law. It can be just a sideshow in your life. The rest of us, you get that notice from the IRS, from someone else. It's like, holy cow, that occupies 100% of my hard drive for the next whenever, right?
Well, and I think that's why people, we've talked about this, I think it's why people identify with Trump. I mean, if you've ever been through a government audit, if you've ever had a business that was highly regulated that suddenly was the subject of some sort of investigation, and I think I think people forget, I mean, it happens at the state level, it happens at the federal level. And I think when you feel like you've been unfairly targeted by the government and you spent a year of your life investing all of your resources and all of your time and the stress of that, when people hear Trump's story, most people know someone who's been through that, who's gotten the hammer by either the state or the federal government. And they say, yeah, I've been there. I know what it's like. And I'm sick of the government going after regular old folks like me and like President Trump, even though President Trump's not a regular old folk.
No.
But I think,
you're right.
But
I think we can relate to this.
For a lot of people, that's what they see on TV every day. And they say, yeah, I've been there. It's terrible. When the government has unlimited resources and isn't having to fund these attorneys' bills, and they can do whatever they want, and they can mess up the evidence, and they still likely get the benefit of the doubt, then yeah, it's unfair. And I think a lot of people are saying that's got to stop.
I think people, you're right. The government can delay these cases. The government can just bleed you dry. If you're a little guy trying to do something, and defend yourself against an audit or against or whatever.
I mean, I've shown up in Jefferson City, and it's been little old me, and the other side brings 4 or 5 attorneys. And I'm like, well, that, must be nice. It is nice.
Don't give us that little old you stuff. We know better than that, don't we,
and then
Stephanie?
I think, are you afraid of me or something? But
get out the violins.
But for your client, it's really frustrating when they know how expensive it is to pay for me, and then they see the other side show up with 5 people who, guess what, are also paid by them, who are paid for it by taxpayer dollars. It's a tough.
You're absolutely right. Yeah. Well, someday I'll have to tell you my story about what I said to a malpractice attorney in a public event at the medical school at Washington University. is this?
Photo evidence of what I have done is posted on the Wake Up in Missouri Facebook page.
What happened?
Nominating myself for the worst coworker ever award.
What?
But I got into the studio early this morning, went to sit at my desk,
Okay.
and went to move some papers that I've had sitting on my desk for a few days. And underneath this small pile of papers was someone's wireless computer mouse.
Oh.
But see, I haven't been missing mine, and mine was actually right next to it.
Uh-oh.
So apparently, at some point in the last several days, I accidentally swiped someone's wireless computer mouse. I guess thinking it was mine, maybe. I don't know. None of them are labeled, so it's.
Do they look the same?
They're different brands,
Yeah.
but I mean, all wireless computer mouses.
Not mine. I bought a pink one.
Well, okay. But I feel really bad because I can just imagine someone like all week long not being able to work effectively because someone has taken their wireless computer mouse.
Shame on you. Hauswirth swiped my power cord like a few weeks ago. He's going to hate me telling this story, but he did give it back, but it had like my name on it, but he kept it for like 3 days, and I was searching everywhere for my power cord.
In my defense, I didn't know that I had this until this morning, and I think these...
In your defense.
Yeah.
And this from the producer who, in a very coy way a few months ago, said, Randy, just checking. Did you happen to grab my tostilla? What was it? Tostada? What was it? Some kind of food?
Burrito.
It was a burrito I meal
burrito,
prepped.
yeah.
Did your mouse, did it work with your computer?
No, like it was buried. I didn't know I had
you've
it.
just been holding on to it.
I've had mine all week.
Were you moving it around on your desk, like, and someone else is sitting at their computer, like, what's going on here?
Now we know why Cousin Andy's had all the dead air on the sports show this week.
So I feel really bad, but I don't know what to do. Like, I'm trying to keep it a little bit on the DL in the office, right? Like, I don't want to...
You just blew yourself up on Facebook.
Well, okay, yeah, true. But how do I just go around the office going, hey,
Guilty.
are you missing your computer
You
mouse?
should put it on the altar of free. Put it on where the cheese balls go.
Oh, yeah, in the break room?
Yeah, don't admit to
Randy
anything.
will eat it.
Just put a Post-it note saying, I'm sorry, I accidentally stole this, and not sign my name.
Yes.
How do we put an unidentified caller on the winners list or texter? Someone says the unspoken rule on airplanes, the window seat person gets the window. 7-4-9390. We keep fighting this titan battle of I don't know why we call it wokeness. It's awakening usually implies enlightenment, a brand new day, the sun shining, good thoughts, positive things. Woke is everything but that. It erodes everything that's good, right, and purposeful. And now we've got the amalgam. We have a spoliation of the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts of America.
I'm going to start charging you $1 every time you use today's word of the day.
Well, the word of the day is spoliation, for those of you just joining us.
It's like when a little kid learns a new word and they keep using it in the wrong context.
John, isn't that proper to in order to cement a word in your mind, in your vocabulary, you have to use it several times that day, correct?
Yeah, we should add a new feature, our word of the day.
Word of the day. Earlier, Stephanie said you'd only use that word like rarely, right?
In 10 years, I think I've only accused the other side of spoliation once in my life. And I think I was the only person I knew who had ever done that. It's really rare, especially when you're dealing with government parties. I mean, you know, whether you're kind of talking about chain of custody or other things, if you mess the evidence up and somehow the court can't trust that what you're presenting is actually the thing that, you know, is the basis of the case, then your whole case can go down at certain times. And so what happened here, we got kind of a summary of a letter that Trump's lawyers sent over, and they said, look, you've represented to the court that these boxes, you know, that you've presented to us are in the exact form that you picked them up from Mar-a-Lago. Upon further review, the documents appear to be out of order. We're having trouble figuring out which documents came from which boxes. And now there seems to be some sort of admission that, maybe these are not in, you know. And so then you have to start wondering, okay, when did they get out of order? How did they get out of order? At whose hands did they become out of order? Now, is there something missing?
And remember, that's in the context of, remember those pictures that broke early on from the FBI with things scattered all over the floor? And I mean, some called it, the anti-Trumpsters called it a conspiracy theory. The pro-Trumpers say, no, the FBI did that. They found them in a box and spewed them all around to make it look like Trump was disorganized and wasn't responsible for the custodial, custody of those. And so in that context, those pictures, and then I think fast forward to this issue with the alleged tampering with the evidence, and it just makes you wonder. But that's what, for those of you who are joining us, then that's where spoliation came up.
Well, and you think with all of the allegations that Trump's made against the government, and what you know about Trump, you think they would be on heightened alert to make sure that there was nothing, awry here, right? Because Trump's going to say this is all, bad, it's all fraudulent, they've messed it up, they planted these documents, they whatever. So you think they, you would hope and you would think that they were being really careful, but apparently what we're learning is maybe they were not. Now the judge has said the trial's postponed indefinitely because obviously, you're going to have to sort this out. And it raises so many questions that it's not necessarily, a black and white or an easy answer. Likely they will need some sort of further explanation, maybe testimony about what happened here. I don't.
So now they need to do discovery. I was looking at one of the official documents, which means that process can go on. I mean, we'll all be dead by the time they get done with that.
Yeah, in that letter, I think they listed, 24 other additional items that they need more information on because they're thinking, okay, what's really going on here?
So spoliation does apply to, I did the Tobler-Webster expanded definition of spoliation when I was applying it to what's going on in scouting, because there's really nothing about evidence here.
Nerd alert.
But apparently there's so much loss and payment of damages in the abuse case within the Boy Scouts that they needed to get some propping up from Girl Scout cookies, right? And from the revenues from the cookies.
We're selling enough popcorn, I guess. Huh?
Leave it to the women to save the day.
The women
once
come
again.
in and rescue the day. The Boy Sprouts of America announced after 114 years.
The boy what?
Sprouts. I just like to play with words occasionally.
We know.
The Boy Sprouts of America announced after 114 years that it will change its name and will become Scouting America. In an effort to emphasize oh gosh, I thought we were done with this. In an effort to emphasize, according to the AP, inclusion as it works to move past the turmoil of bankruptcy and a flood of sexual abuse claims. Why don't they just get past it, re-establish their brand, commit to integrity, and remain the Boy Scouts of America. What's this amalgam? How is this going to work out now? Are they going to be like in the same, two-holer, outhouse at the camp, girl next to boy? Are they going to be showered in the same place? We're all the same now, right?
I don't know.
What does this mean?
What's the Girl Scout equivalent of Eagle Scout?
This is crazy.
Is there a thing? No, I'm serious. I'm being serious. I assume there's this thing.
The Girl Scout Gold Award.
The Gold Award.
Okay. Well, I just think like rebranding is not what they need here. And I think I think the thing that people know the most about the Boy Scouts is if you meet an Eagle Scout, that means something, right? That really does. They've been through a rigorous program, and typically they've done an Eagle Scout project. They care about service. They give back to the community. And if I see that on someone's resume, it means something to me. And I think, regardless of what you call it, they need different leadership, and they need to be putting out a good product. And for years and years and years, they were doing that. And I think now it's questionable that if you come up through this latest version of whatever this is, we're not going to get, a 2024 or 28 Eagle Scout isn't the same as a 2000 Eagle Scout.
Right. Well, now I think I was misinterpreting what I'd heard, but as I read on, the Girl Scout, they're not getting together.
No, it's not a merger.
It's not a merger. It's just a rebranding.
Girls have been in scouting for a number of years now.
6,000. Yeah, there's 6,000 girls who have now achieved the vaunted Eagle Scout rank. So the Boy Scouts, first they allowed gay youth in 2013. They ended a blanket ban on, that's a pun not intended, a blanket ban on gay adult leaders in 2015. And in 2017, they announced that girls would be accepted as Cub Scouts. And then the Flag Scout Boy Scout program renamed Scouts BSA in 2019. Okay, so the Girl Scouts are distancing themselves from this, right? They're not going to be a part of this. But what about these girls that are they going to be sleeping in the same pup tents with these guys? What? I don't understand.
I don't know. I think the Scouts have an entirely different problem, and I don't think it has anything to do with wokeness or scouting. I know,
had a lot to do with the abuse cases is what this all goes back to.
This is really going to set up some great context for adult leaders. I don't care their sexual orientation. You got girls and guys. I mean, it's like I don't think you can. I think they're going at this wrong. They just need to clean up their ranks.
They really do. And I think the abuse kind of started that thing, but I think it has much more to do with the structure of the program and the changing of society. And I think when, I'm one who had to make that choice of do we put the kids in scouting or not. And I remember they talked to us about it. I think they said it was like 2 nights a week and like 1 weekend a month. And so, when you're looking at youth sports, right? These days, it would be nearly impossible for you to do both.
Well, I was a Weeblo leader, and I didn't get into Eagle Scouting that far, but I didn't do the Eagle Scout thing. But I remember very fondly some of the big gatherings of multiple troops around the state. I forget that area down in around Farmington. I think there's a big scouting camp, and they would have the big and. We had
Jefferson County.
Yeah. And we had a lot of fun. And I just remember that's where young men learn to camp and learn to, build a fire and pitch a tent and dig a ditch if it's going to rain around the tent. I mean, you learn good outdoor skills. And it's a beautiful thing. You learn how to tie knots so that your Speedo doesn't come off.
There. Yeah. We wonder about some of the Arrow men among us out there, wonder how the ordeal for Order of the Arrow would go if you're having young ladies involved, and I'm not going to elaborate, but it might be a little bit of a question. You have to do the separate but equal thing.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, that Order of the Arrow thing that puts a whole new thing on that. Yeah, I don't know.
I think are you referring to Camp Don Bosco? Because there's a couple different camps in that area. Camp Don Bosco.
SBARF.
Yeah, I don't.
SBARF Ranch somewhere. I think it was SBARF. I don't know, but
yeah, I'm not sure.
I think it was called the Pacao or something. It was a big gathering, and then once they had them down in Forest Park as well, where the urban and suburban troops would get together and have a big camp out. It's just a great thing, and it's a great organization. The people at the grassroots level, at the high school and middle school level, and the troop leaders, man, those guys work their butts off to bring these young men up, and really, it teaches them discipline, it teaches them teamwork. I mean, there's a lot of great things.
Yeah, we were big fans of the annual Pinewood Derby in my family.
Yeah, you know who always won the Pinewood Derby? I used to get
careful
in St. Louis. Well, in St. Louis, remember we had McDonnell Douglas and then Boeing, and there was one guy in our troop whose dad was an engineer. He was an engineer at Boeing. And curiously, it's funny how those genetic traits. This kid was an amazing Pinewood Derby car builder. He always won. I wonder why.
Well, and I think you're right though, Randy. When we look at like the local organizations as compared to these national organizations, it really is tough. And even when you're in business, we're looking at things like our friends over at Bud Light, right? Like and they were our local friends who we know, right. Were really hurt by what these national folks were doing. Yep. And I think the same for Scouts. Like everything I know about our local programs and our state folks and our grassroots people. Just excellent. And I worry.
Highest integrity, just perfect.
Yeah. And again, if I see that Eagle Scout on a resume, it is an instant bonus. And I think it's tough watching some of this stuff happen at the leadership level that really hurts an organization that we know locally is so esteemed. So I think they got to do something different though.
Let me ask producer Hannah and Stephanie and ladies on the text line. Why would you send your daughter into the Boy Scouts? I'm just always interested in the psychology of these kind of sort of novel moves. Why would a parent send a girl in? Because of the Eagle Scout thing? Or what?
I think easy. I think preparing her for the future. I think every day of my life I show up in a room. I happen to be in one right now full of men. And in the courtroom, full of men. In my other industries, full of men. And so I think navigating a room full of men and learning about that relationship, why wouldn't you consider that preparing your daughter for her future?
Okay, now John, you're gonna have to yield the floor to Randy here a little bit.
Oh, look, it's time to go to break.
You're misreading this entirely. Do you know we are all quivering in our boots in the presence of Stephanie Bell, who regularly says, I like to win.
Yeah.
Those days are gone.
It's a muscle because I think my parents taught me, I grew up with a mother who was in business and I grew up in, we didn't really talk about like traditional gender roles or whatever, but it's a muscle that you have to learn. And so if you want a woman who can, be in the boardroom and be in rooms full of men, I think, putting her in those situations early on probably builds that muscle and prepares her for the future. I don't have any problem with choosing that for your child.
But you imply that somehow there's a power dynamic there that's unequal now.
Not in this room. I know what you're saying.
I view it the other way. You've heard us talk about the dreaded, the fear of the Death Star. It's equivalent to the fear of the Death Star.
Yeah.
When I get the Stephanie Bell question mark on my text thread.
Right.
So don't talk to me. I'm learning how to navigate Stephanie Bell.
But I think
no, but you know what I mean. I think those days are over. Are women still worried about men?
Oh, Randall.
I'm not worried about it.
Well, now, see, but I'm in the medical industry. Women are the backbone of the medical industry, whether they're doctors, nurses, nurse practitioners, business office, right? So I guess I've been in a different pool my whole life.
Well, just yesterday, I got a message on one of our Facebook pages, and I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but I was called some things that Stephanie and I were talking off air that, some words that probably wouldn't be used if this person was talking about one of the guys on the show. It's little things like that Stephanie's talking about.
We should talk about this because there was a story in Hazelwood. When we come back at 8, we're going to talk with Brenda.
Pandas were unveiled May 1st at the Taizhou in Jiangsu province. They were actually just big old chow dogs. Zoo officials reportedly trimmed their mane and dyed their faces black to look like the bamboo-eating bears. And then the so-called panda dogs were put on display, attracting thousands of people despite the obvious bamboozlement. When asked why they had the canines engage in the panda cosplay, they said there are no panda bears at our zoo, so we wanted to do this as a result. They said they weren't being harmful to the animals, that people dye their hair, and natural dye can be used on dogs if they have long fur. And one TikToker said, well, that's an extreme way to get your dogs cared for while you're at work. Decade ago, pups dressed up as the bamboo-beating bears became such a big deal that pet stores in China couldn't keep up with demand. One pet shop owner in Chengdu says, we're like Westerners and want a dog as a companion. The cute breeds like French Bulldogs and Labs were the favorites, but now it's a panda dog. 10 years ago, it was a natural instinct of a Chinese person to have a dog for lunch.
Oh.
Rumors making the rounds, the dogs who didn't make the cut as pandas end up as Labradoodle Foo Young. And now you know the rest of that story.
Egg foo young. Boy, that's a dish you don't see a lot anymore. I love egg foo young, though. It's good.
The pandas ate it all.
You know, have you ever tried to dress your dog up in some, like for a holiday, and take a cute picture of it? You know, we've tried to do that in the past. Put a little, I don't know, put a sombrero on the dog for Cinco de Mayo or something.
That's cultural appropriation.
It is.
Cultural appropriation.
They're great pictures, but boy, is it hard to get it on for more than about 2 seconds on the dog. You know,
They don't make costumes for fish, unfortunately.
Are you a fish lover?
No, but I did have a fish. I will, my fish.
Did the beta finally go belly up?
This last week. We
dead?
had him for like 5 years, but I don't have a good record with pets.
He did not look good when I saw him this past winter. So
He's been on the downhill
And
for a while.
ladies and gentlemen, you don't know this, but in her upcoming memoir, Stephanie will be talking about how she took
Fish to the gravel
betta
pit.
out to the gravel pit and shot it because it was a bad fish.
hopefully Sheriff Wheeler isn't listening.
They're going
Yeah.
to the opposition of spoliation, evidentiary spoliation. We've been discussing that with regard to the Mar-a-Lago documents case today. Stephanie said it's been rare in her experience.
I actually have not. My cases with the taxes, I was a tax litigator.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So that really, I'm trying to think where it could come into play. Never had to run across it.
Yeah. Well, I'm thinking taxes. Maybe someone didn't bring in their shoebox of receipts and they spoliated the receipts. I don't know. But you did you did big time tax stuff, I know. Anyway, but we've been having some fun with that new word of the day here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri. All right, so the budget deliberations are sort of like, we don't know what's going on. Not much is happening. And, Governor Parson, $52 billion, they cut it back in the House. The Senate bill, the Senate deliberations, Senator, Lincoln Huff wants to expand it. What's going on there, and what should go on in the budget in Missouri?
Well, they've got a Friday deadline. Otherwise, they're going to have to be called into special session. The budget needs to be done by Friday. It's in the Senate, and typically what happens is, you have the House pass the budget, goes to the Senate. Typically, the Senate adds on more stuff because that's what they do. Then they go to conference committee, and the bill typically ends up being bigger than the House because, of course, when you're doing horse trading, it typically doesn't get lower. So in this instance, because they're running up against a deadline, the committee chairs are negotiating it. And I don't know which way that'll end up going, assuming they get a budget passed by Friday. They're saying they're planning to come in today. They're going to debate and pass, the federal reimbursement allowance, and then go to the budget. And if they do that, what that means is the committee chairs would have resolved whatever it is they're going to resolve. And assuming that the Senate adds anything to the House budget, it then has to go back to the House, and the House has to vote on it, which, it could cut both ways. We could end up with a budget that looks like the House budget because the House would say, I'm not going to agree to anything more, or we could end up with a budget from the Senate that has added more on and then basically told the House, take it or leave it, because of the time pressure, they take it. So not really a good place for taxpayers, for our legislature to be in. I mean, they've had since January, and here we are. This year's worse than prior years. And they keep talking about the fact, I guess it was in the 90s was the last time they didn't get a budget passed on time. And you do have to ask the question, what are we paying them for? They can't get this done.
Yeah, well, Stephanie brought that up earlier. It's like, what's going on there? At the Insiders event that I had the privilege of moderating last Tuesday with your chief economist, Aaron Hedlund, and, of course, Elias Chapelas, they really set, I think, the context of why it is so important for listeners to pay attention to what's going on with budget deliberations, because I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was brought up that between 2019 and the proposed budget this year, we've gone from, what was it, like the low 20s or mid 20s, 20 billion to 50-ish billion, right? And
right. Well, we've almost doubled the budget.
Yeah. And so I'm thinking, that. And how is Missouri prospering? I think it was Aaron that said we have a net out migration of people. It's not like we're attracting business and the workers that come with them and on and on. So it's like, why is throwing more money at state government projects and tax credits and other things, because tax credits on one part becomes taxpayers' burden on another. And it was really an interesting contextual way to discuss what I think is an exciting thing that you all are talking about, this taxpayer bill of rights. Can you sort of unpack that and something that you've been floating at the Institute, and maybe our listeners can become advocates with their legislators?
Sure. We have something called the Hancock Amendment in Missouri, and we've all always thought that would control really the growth of government and out-of-hand spending, because the notion there, or what most taxpayers think, is, well, if there's going to be a tax increase, we got to approve it, right? But there were certain limits placed within, or triggers, if you will, in the Hancock Amendment, and then it was subsequently amended and then interpreted by the courts. And as a consequence, the Hancock Amendment does not achieve what Mel Hancock intended it to. I'm sure Mel would be the first one to say, this isn't working, we need to change it. So what we're talking about is taxpayer Bill of Rights, and we liken it to putting a speed limit on the growth of government. I mean, we just said the budget of Missouri has doubled within the last 5 years, and part of that is all the federal money. But I have to add, Randy, that the unfortunate part of all of that is the expenditures have not been used wisely from the federal dollars. I mean, we've lacked leadership. They've put in programs that really, I feel sorry for whoever the next governor is, because they're going to have to face some tough decisions. So our notion is to put in what we call speed limits on the growth of government, tie it to population growth and revenue growth, rather than just tying it to one measure. And the notion there is, okay, there's a certain level of service that a state needs to provide. You tie that to the population, and then you allow it to grow based upon population growth or revenue growth, but you can't exceed that. And if it does, you automatically trigger refunds to the taxpayers, or you have to have a vote. So the taxpayers can say, yeah, we want our government to grow more. Give them, and that was what was always contemplated. Right now, with the way the limits in the Hancock Amendment work, we're not going to trigger any of that. I mean, and we've seen game playing. We saw it with the gas tax, right? So they have incremental increases of the gas tax, and the way the wording is that they don't even test it until all of the tax increases have been implemented. It's a very difficult concept. I mean, we've had auditors acknowledge that even they can't figure out how to determine whether the caps have been met or not. So it's a complicated issue, but the simple concept for the taxpayers of Missouri is we need to control the growth of government. It is out of hand, and it's not growing wisely. So the taxpayers need to take control again. And by the way, this kind of taxpayer Bill of Rights exists in other states. In fact, Colorado has one where I would say the left tried to undermine it, and the voters resoundingly said, no, we like having this protection in place. We want to control how big government gets.
That's Brenda Talent, CEO of the Show Me Institute, showmeinstitute.org.
So tell me then, as you're talking about the Taxpayer Bill of Rights with legislators, what kind of pushback are you getting? I mean, is the mantra now like, well, we've got so much money that we might as well spend it while we got it, and we'll make cuts later? I mean, it seems like with the supermajority of quote unquote conservatives, this should be a win-win.
Well, there have been some versions of this bill passed. What we're doing right now is we're preparing a complete rollout of what this would look like and meeting with people to explain it to them so that they understand it and can have the talking points for it. What you do hear when you meet with some legislators is this concept of, well, people want this. So, and I can take the one example is the child care tax credit. It's like, well, people want this. Sure they do. I would like you to come in and fund my budget too if you want to. But the first question is it the proper role of government? And let me go back a little bit. One of the problems with Missouri is we ignore these tax credits, and we have tax credits going out to corporations, individuals, et cetera, economic development credits. In fact, they're over $600 million, which comes pretty close to what our corporate income tax is. And we're not counting that. That's another thing that the Taxpayer Bill of Rights would do. So I think part of all of this is what we've seen with the federal money coming in is, too much of this kicking the can down the road. People are not acting like fiscal conservatives. They're serving special interests. And the reality is by the time all of the, as they say, the chickens come home to roost, they're not going to be in office anymore. So it won't be their problem. And that is a real problem. And then I'll just underscore this. What is really sad about our spending spree, and that's what I see it as, it's been a spending spree, is that we didn't invest in important infrastructure kind of issues, such as just our IT at the state level, where we've got outdated technology, where we can't even track how we're spending this money across the number of agencies. It's ridiculous, and we should have invested money in that. You look at healthcare. We have grown healthcare beyond what's required by the federal government. I mean, we did expand Medicaid, but then we also expanded who's eligible for it. Outside of that, we also have sort of, slow walked the checks on eligibility. So just as a state, it's sort of like, who is serious about watching taxpayers' dollars and how they're spent? And right now, I can't say that I see a great number of people who are.
I might also add, having been part of the whole medical machine for a while till we got off of it, and we do a direct-to-patient care now, I can tell you, Brenda, that farming out health care to for-profit companies that do only ration health care, and I'm a capitalist just like anyone else, that's entirely wrong. And there's other ways to do this, but they refuse. The legislators, I don't know, I think I know why. I think they're getting generous campaign donations from big pharma, big, insurance. And they won't listen to the people providing care and on how to more efficiently keep people out of the higher levels of care by providing better and more patient-oriented primary care, right? And so I just think it's this. There seems to be a growing collusory environment between, and I know healthcare. That's why I talk about it. And I think it probably applies. Well, it applies to education, right? We've talked about how the unions pretty much dictate that what paltry gains we had with the education bill. I think they were tepid given the supermajorities we have. That's because these special interest groups that really aren't in the interest of the people, they're in the interest of the special interest group. And they seem to be dominating the discussion in the offices of our legislators. That includes Republicans. That's my opinion. What's yours?
Well, I can't disagree, Randy, and but I remain ever hopeful in the power of markets, because Missouri needs to face the fact that we're being left behind. States surrounding us are, they're getting the joke. They're expanding education choice. They're cutting taxes. Mm-hmm. They are communicating, our doors are open. Bring your businesses and family here because you will thrive and flourish in our state. And if we can't continue business as usual, as you heard at the lecture last week, we are in what's called a demographic winter, which means we're losing more people than we're gaining. That is not a recipe for growth.
Right.
It's not a recipe for keeping our kids in this state. People with children, don't you want them to be near you, grow up, come back to the hometown? We need to create an environment that attracts them. And so it's, we're late in the game, unfortunately, but I always believe it's never too late.
Well, this discussion needs to be continued, because we need to engage folks listening, to engage their legislators, to realize that free markets do benefit the little guy and gal. The people can benefit, like you said, and other
0.13%, Dow up 0.08%, NASDAQ down 0.1%. And this morning, everybody's in the red, NASDAQ being in the red the most at 0.6% down right now as the market prepares to open. All right, we're going to get to the TikTok ban here because I think it's important. But first, the real important news is that Kansas City might be getting a Buc-ee's.
Ooh.
And I think last week or 2 weeks ago, I've been to the Springfield Buc-ee's twice in like the last couple of weeks.
Brisket on the board.
Yeah. So I have, it's smaller than the one that I remember going to on like a trip to Florida, but it's still very nice and drawing lots of people. It is just slam packed. And it's just wonderful. Again, the bathrooms are clean.
The wall of jerky.
I bought $50 worth of beef jerky. I'm not gonna lie.
You didn't.
Don't tell me they have jerky there.
Oh, a whole wall of it.
What are
Now,
you gonna
it's a
do with
wall of
3 bags
jerky.
of beef jerky?
It was 4.
So in the near
Four.
future, we're supposed to be driving to Nashville to have a birthday weekend for my wife and daughter and stuff. So on the way to Nashville down
I
through
don't
Louisville,
know.
will I encounter a Buc-ee's?
I don't think so. I just went there last weekend. I don't think so.
Helena's
You gotta
a
really go to
jerky
like
lover.
Orlando. But
Okay.
let's get to this Kansas City one. Apparently, they're eyeing some land over near the Legends, like near
Oh.
Kansas City Speedway, Hollywood Casino. They're doing some platting, and people have identified this could be Buc-ee's. So if we recall, there's been some false starts about businesses in Springfield, but I think this appears to not be. I think this appears to be actually not a rumor, but an actual potential for Kansas City. So
I have an idea. What about where that landfill was going to go? Maybe she'd like to develop a Buc-ee's there.
I love it.
Yeah.
Buc-ee's, if you're listening and you want to come to Ashland, let's have a
There
little
you go.
chat. Okay. Also, we should mention that TikTok has officially sued on this ban. Obviously,
Yay.
the government says they're going to ban TikTok. TikTok's coming in and saying, yes, if this law is allowed to go into an effect, that it will force a shutdown of TikTok by January 19th, 2025. The clock is ticking, Hannah. So they have a bunch of different arguments and essentially are arguing that it's an unconstitutional punishment on TikTok, that it denies the company equal protection, and it amounts to an unlawful
our friends in Springfield at the Zimmer stations down there, we'll just make a little weekend out of it.
I know someone with some trolleys. I think we should take a family field trip. What do you think?
How long?
Road trip?
Wait.
No,
so the
we
trolleys
can't go
don't.
that far.
The trolleys don't go very fast. How long would it take the whole weekend for us to get to
But
Springfield?
we could get a party bus or something. I say we take everyone with us. Remember how they used to do Cardinals, like you guys used to get on a bus with listeners and go to the Cardinals game? Yeah. I think we should get on a bus and go to Buc-ee's.
I think Buc-ee's should buy some advertising, for crying out loud. They're getting all this earned media time here.
Why bother?
It's news. I mean, and if you look at how the news covered it when they went in, all of them covered it because it is a big deal. It is economic development, and definitely want to keep your eye on the weather.
Well,
too.
and the
weather's a concern.
I have a poopy pants of the day. Okay.
You poopy pants?
No, I'm nominating someone.
Oh,
that's a new
that?
award. We have winners and losers of the week that we do on Fridays
And poopy
at
pants of the week?
8:35. Now we have a poopy pants of the day. Okay. Listener John texted us at 874-9390 saying, "I thought Buc-ee's was a gross display of all things wrong."
Ooh.
That's definitely a poopy pants. All
well,
right,
listener John, I'm sorry that someone has obviously hurt you in your past.
We're making a plan of this right now, Hannah, because you know when we're going to take our little show field trip and family field trip?
When?
Randy thinks he's all fancy pants, and he's going to Europe, with a bunch of family members. So you just go to Europe and eat your fondue, and we will take a bus full of folks, and we will eat our beef jerky and our brisket down at Buc-ee's.
Okay.
I like this.
Can I just have to somehow keep my wife away from the wall of jerky? Because that's her go-to sort of,
well, y'all will be in
low-calorie, high nutritional density food.
Y'all will be in Switzerland, so you don't even worry about
Okay,
it.
I think there's so many different flavors. I think I got like a sweet and spicy and jalapeno honey or something and Korean barbecue.
But is it the typical, 2 ounces of jerky for a king's ransom? I mean, it's just, you can spend a lot of money for jerky.
You can.
Yeah. I like deer jerky. I do when we do deer hunting. All right, so a couple of stories. First of all, lemonade is charged lemonade at Panera is going away. Is that right? We didn't get to that during the
There's a bunch of
bell.
lawsuits about it.
Why?
Because it's got a ton of caffeine. So just like those drinks that Hannah drinks, although she knows it when she drinks them. But a lot of people have said, I went in there and got a lemonade and I didn't realize it has the equivalent of 3 or 4 cups of coffee. I mean, it's a lot of caffeine.
It's pretty bad.
Okay,
so some people have had some heart issues.
Seriously, though, there have been reports of young, otherwise healthy people who, walk out of a convenience store with, 3 Red Bulls and a 5-minute energy, shot. And they end up in the emergency room with palpitations and heart arrhythmias. So I mean, and especially if you're a middle-aged guy and you haven't seen the doctor in years, and you maybe smoke and have some blood pressure and a little overweight, you may be having something lurking there that is just sort of a threshold event for an arrhythmia. So watch it on the caffeine, guys. That's the message here.
Yes.
And the marketing to kids, because I think kids are like, lemonade, okay, I can get that. A 16-year-old might not know. Same for us. I mean, we have a drink fridge, right? And it's got Poppy, and it's got LaCroix, and it's got soda, and it's also got some Celsius in there. Mm-hmm. And so the kids will say, oh, can I have one of these? And I'm like, actually, no, you can't. That's for adults. And they don't understand. That the thing that kind of looks like the other drinks is not for kids. And I think that's where a lot of people are getting.
And I wonder how much of this violence, domestic violence, other kind of violence we have, caffeine is so more ubiquitous now than it ever was before. I mean, you used to get it through your coffee, right? Now it's in and Coca-Cola and stuff. But now, my gosh, we don't drink a can of Coke anymore, or Diet Coke or whatever. It's a,
super big
it's like a roll cart's worth.
Well, just wait till you go to Europe, because then they'll hand you your Coke, and this is a shot of Coke. Like their Cokes are so small.
And no ice, right?
Oh, it's terrible.
Well, little advertisement here. If you're going to try to modulate your caffeine intake, move towards green tea. Green tea is very good for you. A lot of antioxidants.
Like dirt.
I just bought a bunch of Keurig K-Cups for our server in our lobby in our practice with green tea, because we want to have healthy
Don't shame me about
selections.
my Coca-Cola. I'm just like Donald Trump in the courtroom. I'm cranky when I'm cold and you take away my Diet Coke.
Green tea, there's reasons that the Asian folks live so long until they westernize, because they have all these good antioxidants. They eat basically a plant-based diet, a few fish, not a lot of saturated fats and stuff. So
Look at
Yeah,
Donald
if
Trump.
Stephanie can't have her Diet Coke, then she's only going to be able to have 4 drinks at once.
Well, as long as
instead
I'm
of 5.
shaming you on that. Now, the diet sweeteners are not good for your microbiome, not good for your GI tract. I'm looking out for you, Stephanie.
I have a new poopy pants of the day.
Yeah. Look
All
at
right.
just look at Donald Trump versus Joe Biden. I bet
Yeah,
Joe
look at
Biden
Donald Trump.
drinks green tea.
Yeah.
He's hopping around on the golf course. He's looking good. He eats cheeseburgers and Diet Coke. Come
I'd
on.
like
Falling asleep in the courtroom.
I'd like to see Donald Trump's cardiac catheterization. That's all I'm saying. Now, we've got some weather. John, Brian, who wants to go first here on the weather? Because I know it's going to be more in the southern zone. Go ahead.
That's first of
Go
all.
ahead,
that's-
Brian.
Yeah, that's not necessarily correct, Randy. That is going to be the bulk.
I'm always correct. Okay,
Fact
I'm
check.
turning. Okay, Hauswirth's mic's off now. John, proceed with the weather forecast.
No, the bulk of it. You're right. The bulk of the more severe. There's a 3, there's a 2, a 3, and a 4. And if people go to KWS.com, 939theeagle.com, you can see Columbia is right on the edge of 2 and 3. The higher you are, the more severe weather threat you have. So you are correct that would be the best chance of severe weather. But Columbia, Jeff City, and all of the areas, Boonville, have a chance of it as well. There also is a system right now that is clipping parts of our listening area off to our west that we were not anticipating this morning. And I talked to the Weather Service several times that could produce a morning round of this earlier than we think. You can look at our skies. They are really dark right now. But the best chance of severe weather for Columbia, Jeff City, Lake of the Ozarks, everywhere basically that can hear our voice is the early to mid-afternoon hours. The potential is there, Randy, for tornadoes, strong tornadoes, hail, and damaging winds. I hope that doesn't happen, but the system, all the ingredients are there. Reed Timmer, who's a storm chaser, well-known, he's set up right now in Springfield to give you some idea of where he is. Ginger Z's down in southern Missouri as well. So, yes, that's the best chance, but we're right smack dab in it as well. So just be careful if you're going out. Updated maps, KWS.com, 939theeagle.com.
And I don't know, John, did I see that somewhere in the southern zones there were going to be maybe some like snowball-size hail? I mean, 3-inch hail?
Well, we're even in the zone. They're saying baseball size hail possible for mid Missouri.
Wow!
And they were also talking about these straight line winds, not so much a tornado threat, but we know the Weather Channel was talking about the potential for straight line winds topping 80 miles an hour through Missouri.
That would be a big concern, and that's exactly right. And again, I think the National Weather Service, John, has set this up. The biggest thing is have a plan ready to go of where you want to go. And hopefully it won't happen. But someone's going to get it. The question is where.
And we got a caller the last time when we had this hail prediction, and he said, the number one thing is do not stop in the middle of the highway under the overpass. And I actually thought, I was like, are you kidding? No one does that. And sure enough, there were pictures all over Facebook of people stopped in the middle of the interstate trying to protect their car under the overpass. Don't do that, people.
No, there's no question. You could Google this, Stephanie. There is a television meteorologist, and I believe he won an award. This is back in like 1991, and he was in Wichita. John will remember this. And he was just stuck. They were out. The station sent him out to cover the tornado, and they sent him out without a whole lot of really
came right toward the overpass.
And he went on that car. Thank goodness didn't come up, but he hit under the overpass, and they had video of this huge tornado coming over. And what all the meteorologists said, he didn't get hurt. Actually, a motorist and the camera guy didn't get hurt either, but they told people just what you said, don't do that. In his case, he didn't have any choice. The alternative is he would have been sucked up by the tornado, but that is not a good place to go. Just be careful out there.
Shannon says that she's in Tipton. It's not raining, but the lightning is crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, that's just off towards Sedalia. That's part of that system that's clipping the western edge of the listening area.
So I have some trees that hang over the driveway. So we moved a year and a half ago, and the boxes are still every weekend I say I'm going to get to doing that and clearing it out. So I have to park the cars on the driveway still. But if I park under the tree, I ought to get some protection from big hail, yeah? I mean, at least it'll minimize the impact, right?
It would help if the tree, it would help, but the trees potentially could also fall
yeah,
on
I
the
could lose
car's
limbs
wear.
down on the
Or
the
you're
thing
talking
could fall
baseball or
over.
bigger sized hail, all bets are off.
Yeah.
And the other thing to remember is if you're like me and you decide to call everyone at the state all morning long and wonder why no one's picking up for half the day, reminder.
It's a state holiday, and I've got a full story. And people, this is the
I do
holiday.
this every single time, and I will call all day long, and I'm like, "What's up
State
today?
holiday?
Is there some big meeting or something?"
Harry Truman's birthday. I've got a detailed story. KWS.com, 939theeagle.com.
Or as my husband/state employee would put it, someone died or aged. That's why they're off.
Well, this particular president integrated the armed forces. I mean, he started the Marshall Plan. If you look back at of course, he was there. He invited Winston Churchill to speak in 1946 in Fulton. Everything he said in that speech, Winston Churchill and Truman with him, would apply today to Russia. I mean, you'd think he was talking about it today, but he was ahead of his time, a decorated World War I veteran, and he is the only Missourian to be in the White House, and that has an asterisk on it, so that therefore the state holiday, which is a big day. I'm getting a lot of reaction to it on our story I put up. There is, by the way, a second man who I believe, and wrote a thesis about it in college, a paper. David Rice Atchison, I believe, was president of the United States for one day. And his tombstone actually says that, Northwest Missouri, president of the United States for one day, 1849, I believe.
We should have that debate now because I think people's answer would have changed. Is you said he's the only Missourian to enter the White House. Who's the next Missourian to go to the White House? I heard a couple of folks.
Oh, the next one coming out?
Yeah. I mean, for a while there, everyone thought Josh Hawley's going to
Yeah.
run. He's going to run. He's going to run. And I think he's out of the picture now for that personally. But I have my eyes on Eric Schmidt. I think he's
very bright.
I really think he is just on a rocket ship right now, and I think he's going to be. He's so personable, and I think he's doing.
He's personal.
He's smart. I think
He's
he's
lost
doing,
weight. He's doing the lose weight before you run thing.
He's not quite the Christy Gnome. I don't think he's gotten to like the hair extensions and the filler yet.
No.
But he's definitely changed his appearance. I think. But if
Does
I'm
he shoot
wrong,
his dogs?
Is there anybody else? I mean, who else would you name? Who if we had to guess right now of the people you know in Missouri politics, who's the next one to hit the White House or has the best potential? What's your answer?
I would say Josh Hawley, and you and I disagree on that. I would think he has the best chance, but I don't. You don't think so?
I think he's
Eric
sort of become a bit of a caricature.
Well,
I don't know.
The one thing about Senator
I like
Hall,
Josh, but don't get me
and
wrong.
we want to have him on the show too. But I mean, once he comes back, and we'll be able hopefully to get him on. But Eric Schmidt, I know, I agree with you. He is bright. But with Truman, he was just not even on the horizon. It was just incredible. Yeah. And he ended up in the White House. And so again,
Harry Truman couldn't handle an inside fastball like Eric Schmidt, though. So.
No, that's true.
He's a pretty good baseball
Okay,
player.
everyone remembers except for young Hannah and maybe producer Stephanie, but, before they were even a glint in their parents' eyes. Remember MASH?
Oh, I do.
And remember the favorite MASH line to Harry? They were toasting to Harry Truman.
fictional
Wow.
book.
Today, if there was a Corporal Klinger character, he'd be a 1-star general, right? He'd be like Rachel Levine.
Be the
analog.
chief surgeon at the very least, and we're not going to talk about what kind of surgeries they
Oh,
be
boy,
having.
yeah, right. Oh, boy, yeah. Hey, it's time for leftovers. John, got any?
Well, I think the leftover we're looking at is a pretty good storm cell that's out around just about the leading edge is just about Tipton right now. It's been centered over Sedalia and all, and just sort of tracking right along Highway 50, moving from the southwest to the northeast. So it should be coming through mid-Missouri pretty soon. We haven't heard what kind of winds it's packing and all, but it looks like a pretty good storm cell headed in. So I think we'll probably see it in the next half hour to an hour or so right here in the wake up listening area.
This could be funky for sure. Stephanie?
As for your MASH references,
Yes.
and somebody said it's kid friendly. At the place my kids like to go, Eagle Achievers in Ashland, they always watch old episodes of Andy Griffith, and the kids talk about it. But you got it. Today's shows are not that kid friendly. All right. The other thing we're kind of keeping our eye on, John, is this the Jeff City Council. I think for a while it was pretty boring, not a lot going on, but apparently the first couple meetings since these new folks have gotten installed there's been a lot of debate, and I guess they've been arguing a lot over appointments, which typically isn't, I don't think, a point of contention, John. So I think I don't think we're done hearing about the arguing that's happening there and kind of the division and disagreement, and I think we're going to have to keep a close eye as things progress there.
Apparently they had a debate over an appointee to the Jefferson City Parks and Recreation Committee the other night that got a little on the heated side.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we'll have to see where that goes. It's funny how, you don't expect these things to broil up, but I think you texted the group the other night and like, whoa, things are heating up.
They really are. And I mean, what we saw was the election was contested, and they said, these new folks got in. They said it was going to be a change, and it looks like it's not just going to be the status quo. And people were surprised, I think, by that election, and I think are going to be surprised by maybe some of these debates. I think they voted on some stuff for housing, John, which I don't know.
Yeah, moving in when we had the other day when Mayor Ron Fitzwater joined us on the air, they were talking about moving ahead on several workforce housing developments to the tune of adding about 100 new potential rentals if the contractors move ahead with their plans. So